CentralAutoGroupCT.com. Best staff, best products, best service, and best prices at CentralAutoGroupCT.com. That's no payments for 90 days and 0% financing for 72 months. Drive a little and save a lot. Nobody beats CentralAutoGroupCT.com.
Your number one buying destination. Central Auto Group.
Exit 28I-395. See dealer for details.
The managing director of Paragon Trust Company and tax and private client practitioner joins us to bring a common sense approach to money in a world of total insanity. Let's welcome Tony D'Angelo.
All right, our pal Tony D joins us every Tuesday. I got a chance to see Tony late last week because he dropped off a Mickey Mantle card right here in the studio. It's actually right here in the studio right now, a replica Mickey Mantle card with his actual signature on it for our donation, again, auction giveaway. And Tony, first, thank you for doing that, and good morning, buddy. How are you?
My pleasure. I'm proud to be among everybody. You know, that card, I can authenticate the signature. There was a dealer in my neighborhood, this is like 30 years ago, and he went down to Mickey Mantle's, and Mickey used to sign cards. Mickey was signing a lot in his later years, and got Mickey's signature for me, so that the Mantle signature, again, Mantle's deceased over 25 years, but there are a lot of later Mantle signatures. The earlier Mantle signatures are very hard to come by because he signed very little. But it is not a 1953 Bowman card, but you hold it up, it looks just as pretty, and Mick's signature is on it. And Mick is really, to me, Mick represents a lot of America. He was he was the high school athlete and the fair-haired boy, and he had played through pain, and then he had some horrible personal problems. And in the end of his life, when he was struggling with his final illness, did incredible amounts of work for kidney donation. Right. So, Mick, I think, in so many ways represents what America's really all about.
My favorite Mickey Mantle story, I've heard it a couple of different times, has nothing to do with him hitting a 500-foot home run or stealing a base or making a catch. He told a story about how he was having trouble in the minor leagues. And I think it might have been his first year or maybe his second year in the minor leagues. I don't think he played more than 2 years, but he was having a lot of trouble and didn't like it. He called his dad and said, "I'm having trouble, blah, blah, blah." And then he tells the story obviously way better than I could ever tell it. But, his dad hung up on him. And, with really sort of no fanfare, the next thing he hears is knock on the door. It's his dad with a suitcase saying, "Let's go, we're going home." And it was a wake-up call for him. And he said, "No, I don't want to go home."
The mines await you. Yeah.
So, exactly. So his dad, if his dad doesn't have a little tough love there, then Mickey Mantle's not Mickey Mantle.
Yeah, and it's and the only thing, if back then I was a Yankee fan, if you saw Mantle and if you saw him like limp and try to beat out a bunt limping and thing like that, Mick would bring you to tears. I mean, he would rap like a mummy. A few people, I think, today know that before the game. He would sit in the whirlpool for a couple of hours, and then he would wrap his legs in gauze and adhesive, and he would... at the end of the game, he'd take all that off, and then he'd sit in the tub. And, except if he was really badly hurt, he missed very few games. And, Mick really is, an inspiration with a lot of human frailty, to me.
So how did you get the signature again, if you don't mind telling that story real quick?
A friend of mine was dealing in memorabilia. I was trading in memorabilia at that time. And I asked him to get me, he was going to Mantle's restaurant off of Central Park. I said, "Could you please get me a Mickey signature?" And Mickey was signing that night, and, he came back with one. I think I gave him something else in return for it. Back then, they weren't expensive, maybe $25, $50.
Amazing.
But Mick was signing a lot, and, now Mick's no longer here to sign.
How do they know, real quick, I know you want to get to other stuff, but how do they know what's early, what's late? As far as his signature.
With Mickey, I'm not an autograph connoisseur, but, there are examples of how he signed things earlier as opposed to later. Just comparison.
Yeah, okay.
And I think that our signatures change over time. I've noticed that in my own. I know how I sign a letter today is not the way I signed a letter 15, 20 years ago.
That's a good point.
I think it's just basically a site comparison.
Okay, very good. All right, so listen, it's up on the website. You can go to LeeElci.com, and click the button, and it takes you right to the link. We're getting some things that are selling. We're doing some sell it now kind of stuff, but yours is up there. All kinds of other great, very charitable people that put out a lot, so hopefully we can raise a lot of money.
And if you want a statement from me on how I know that autograph is the real thing, I'm more than happy to do it with my sign and my seal.
All right, that's great. We'll make sure we add that in, because you know how people are. So
sure.
we'll
Why not?
we'll throw
I
that
the
in.
same way.
Yeah, so we'll throw that in, and that way you know you've got the real deal Mickey Mantle, so you can have that on your mantle. Pardon the pun, for forever. There you go. All right, so and you know what? I may reach out to you on Friday just to get a quick how do you do, and maybe we can tell that story once over as we try.
Me here.
All right, brother. All right, what are we talking about today? Restaurants. We're starting with that.
Well, you know, something really bothered me, and I didn't necessarily intend to go here. We've got the whole PSERS scandal, which is developing in Pennsylvania, and believe me, that seems to be getting bigger by the day, as typically things do with grand juries. But this, in my little bit of newspaper reading last week, I read about our governor having a ceremony of we have won the war. We are going to open up the restaurants, and it was this wonderful bipartisan effort. You know, to your point about COVID and over-managing and that sort of thing. And it's sort of like I'm reading this thing, and it's, you know, do you really think I am an idiot, people? I mean, you went and you killed restaurants. It's like I walk into a city or a town or whatever the case may be. I say, I go over there for a cup of coffee or for a donut or a muffin or something, and these places are gone, you know. And it's like we're now supposed to sing Kumbaya. We're now supposed to come to you. We're now supposed to say, you've done this wonderful thing and saved us from this dreaded illness that was going to kill us all. I'm not making fun of the illness, but it's like, you know, and what did you do during this time? You know, governor with a small G, you were pumping money. You were pumping up your equities. You were putting funds in the Cayman Islands where, you know, my poor little coffee shop there I used to go in Putnam when I stopped in the safe deposit box is no more. These people who had excellent food and excellent quality, and I don't know how many lives were destroyed. I care about that. Do you? I mean, I'm ready to jump out of my skin. I mean, and if these people think that, I'm going away with this stuff, we're just beginning, Lee Elci. Yeah. Believe me, I am now very angry at this.
Well, I mean, where are we headed, though? I mean, what's the next thing that's going to happen here?
Oh, in governor land?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, put it this way. I'm just going to say this. For people in the state who want representation of, you know, small business,
right,
lower taxes, things that, you know, we really need. I mean, we can figure out our own way to live. We don't need a nanny state telling us how to live. But as far as there's like 3 or 4 major things that are going to be coming down the pipe. You know, the biggest thing right now, at least to me, but it's indicative of how things are done here, is this PSERS scandal, because we said a couple of weeks ago that it's very clear in their own documentation that the Oak 3 Caymans Fund is in the Connecticut pension. I've got the slide. Please don't tell me that's not happening. Now, if that's the case, as we said, that fund, or shall we say Connecticut, is aware of what's happening in Pennsylvania, because that's the way it is in any kind of trust. If you have taint in one place, you know, the taint spreads and you have to let the other people know. Right. This week I sent an email to every single member of the legislature saying, we need to have some information on this. Is there oversight? I mean, I get more noise if I'm walking in the airline trail in Pomfret. There's nothing. I mean, it's like, you know, what kind of games are we playing here? I'm just very angry about it.
Disappointing. I'm very disappointed with some of the stuff. And we've had this conversation before, because it's really amazing how these stories can be out there and really not much movement on any of this stuff. Hey, before we jump to whatever it is you want to wrap this up with, I'm getting a couple of people actually have done this in the last 48 hours, so it is fate that we get this out there. People want your Twitter handle. So they can follow. No, I'm serious. So so they can follow.
Angelo 7, and the 7 is for Mickey.
How about that? All right, so there you go. See, it all works out in the end, Tony. Tony D'Angelo 7, and
number 7,
and that's how you can follow.
And that's a good thing. I know you have to get off. Maybe I got a bunch of autograph stories. We can maybe share those in the weeks to come.
Well, give me one. Okay,
Joe DiMaggio never, ever, ever, ever would sign anything with Marilyn Monroe.
Okay.
And people would try to trick him, and they'd go into the line, and like they'd have a picture of Joe and Marilyn, and kind of like put a cardboard, and he would just curse and throw the thing back. It was. You mentioned if you want to see Joe D leave a room, you just mention Marilyn, and the man's off on a fly ball.
What's the story?
I got more stories about that, but yeah, you don't mention Marilyn to Joe. It ain't happening.
Well, what's the story behind that? That always seemed like an. Listen, she was with a lot of different men, obviously, with a lot of different people. Let's just leave it at that. And she somehow wound up with Joe DiMaggio, and was she just trying to run the gamut of all of American icons? It seemed like that might have been the case, but you felt like that was a really strange match. He's a sort of a recluse, and she's everything but that, right?
Well, they were going to get remarried when she died under mysterious circumstances. She was at Yankee Spring Training Camp in 1961 and 1962 when Joe was the hitting coach. And I remember Moose Scourin on Rich Marazzi's show telling us about how, he, Whitey, and Mickey, they saw her come into the breakfast room, and their forks dropped, and they just stood there gaping, with these crew cuts, like, gosh, like it was like they're in the presence of a goddess. But yeah, they were going to get remarried. That was really the sad thing.
That's amazing.
Joe always held that against the Kennedys, by the way.
Is that right?
Yeah, he sure did.
I can see what that would happen. Think about her life too. There's so many different stories with both of them. Man, amazing. But what was it about her that you remember that he didn't like to talk about?
Well, anything associating her with him, that was just like a very private part. He sent flowers to her grave every single day for as long as he was alive.
Really?
He sure did.
Wow. Well, see,
I think it was Forest Lawn, Glendale, yeah.
He probably truly loved her. You know what I mean? Wow, that must have been, that's a tough one. That's tough. All right.
It really is.
Tony, great stuff today. Listen, I know it's a little bit out of the norm, but this is an out of the norm week, so we'll jump back in it next week.
Out of the norm these days, Lee Elci.
All right,
so thanks so much. Thanks, everybody.
And maybe I'll talk to you at the end of the week, okay?
It's fine by me.
All right, buddy. Tony D'Angelo. And again, online, there is an